is Sportscasters Anonymous, a weekly podcast about sports, all sports, MLB, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, collegiate football, and collegiate basketball.
But there's more.
We'll even talk about sports video games, sports movies. It's all here. You're listening to Sportscasters Anonymous on the Random Chatter Network, broadcasting to the globe from Jacksonville, Florida. This is Don and Chip.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name's Don. He's Chip. We are Sportscasters Anonymous. We thank you all for joining us. This is episode number 13, recorded on July the 12th, 2020. We have got lots of exciting news for you this week. Good, bad, indifferent. We like to cover it all. Chip, my man, how's it going?
It's going well. I was super excited this week. I got to watch a Philadelphia Sport play, and they won. So I was a happy camper. I can't say I had anything to complain. So MLS is back. Tournament started. I watched the Union win on a 1-0 victory. So I'm super excited. I'm super pumped for what we got for the show tonight.
All righty. Well, before we get into the news and discussions, there's always the ways to contact us. You can email Chip at randomchatter.com or myself, Don, at randomchatter.com. Follow us on Twitter at SportcastAnon. Join us on Discord, Random Chatter. Lots of discussions there, a little bit of something for everybody. Support us on Patreon, Random Chatter. And as always, buy our merch on randomchatter.com/store. And Chip, I sent you a text earlier today because, as you can tell, I am overjoyed with the good news we're about to deliver. Let's go ahead and kick off the show with some NHL news tonight.
Yeah, I know. It's really weird that you're going to start out with NHL because it's probably the least of the four major sports that everyone likes. So, but anyways, the NHL actually was one of the four major sports that did something right. As far as their CBA. So they agreed to a new CBA with some changes. They also agreed to a restart plan. They had a tentative one in place with the scheduling and everything like that. They just had to hammer out the details, and the NHLPA voted on both of them this week and got agreement done. So we're going to not have to go to a labor stoppage, which has been a huge thing with the NHL over the last few CBAs. Is there's always been some type of labor stoppage, and it's been extended for a really long time, and it's really hurt their sport. But they finally agreed on one, so it's going to be the first time since '94 that the players didn't participate in it, but they definitely, or excuse me, I was reading something different. So the one change, I read a date and went across my head, and I was like, wait, what? No. So the Olympics, they agreed in the agreement. One of the changes was that the players are going to be, NHL players are able to participate in the Olympics, which
that's outstanding.
Yeah, which they were prohibited in the 2018 Olympics, and that was the first time since '94 that they weren't able to participate. So the players were really upset about that, and that was one of the things that they wanted to rectify with the new CBA, is that, hey, we want to be able to be part of the Olympics and represent our team. And since the majority of the NHL players don't really play for USA, it's kind of more of a very international type feel.
Yes.
That definitely hurts them. Now the caveat is the NHL has given their blessing, but they've given it to the IOC and basically said, okay, now you guys have to approve it. So while the NHL has approved it, they really just kind of put the ball in the IOC's court and said, all right, you guys be the bad guys. Instead of
the NHL was like, we'll
guys.
let the kids out to play, but you need to let us know if it's all right to come to your house.
Yep. Some other things that they did was the salary cap is now flat until they reach $4.8 billion in revenue. It's going to stay at $81.5 million per team for the foreseeable future until they get the revenue. And then Don, I don't know if you want to explain how they're going to increase the salary cap once they hit the $4.8 billion in revenue, because you know more about that than I do.
The business side of it.
Yeah.
So basically, the way that they're approving going forward for the salary cap is the cap will stay flat right now. So whatever it was linked to, the 81.5 million, they will do the same for the 2021 season. The cap could have gone up to almost 89 million next season, but of course, because of the stoppage of play, revenues, everything else, just like every other sport, there's money considerations, piece of the pie, and whatnot. So they said, "Hey, but we're going to cap it," which would be the responsible thing to do. The way that they are linking the revenue, they have a formula that they're going to use. They call it a lag formula for the salary cap. So that will rely on hockey-related revenue from the previous 2 seasons, as well as what their projections are for the upcoming season. So basically, they're using a lot of metrics to kind of slide the number around over the next 4 years based on revenues. Now, I got to tell you, it's a fantastic way to do it because one side or the other is not getting burned. This is the owners and the players both said, what do we need to do where both sides are happy and we can play hockey for the fans? So I applaud both sides for that 100%. This seems like you said it at the beginning, the only sport that got it right.
Do you think that they saw how the collective bargaining agreements and how distant the owners were with with baseball and felt we don't want that to happen to our sport, so they decided to fast track an extension on this contract because they still had a couple years left on the current contract. So do you think they just saw that and were just scared off and like, hey, we don't want this to happen, let's get it done now?
I think part of it was everybody saw what was going on because even basketball is still having some issues. Baseball was obviously a big issue. And now, and we'll talk about it later, it looks like football might be running into some issues. So I think hockey said, let's take an objective look at it. We all know the next couple of years with COVID and revenues being affected by it and whatnot, we really don't know what the future is going to hold. So let's just kind of roll the dice and find a way that's equitable for both sides. Now, on a side note, Don Fair negotiated the contract for the NHLPA. Now, you're a baseball guy, so I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, you know who Don Fair is, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So he negotiated back in the day for the Major League Baseball Players Association. Maybe he could pick up the phone and call it like ESPN says and send some tips along to his buddies in baseball because this guy's got no problem getting it done.
Yeah, there's just so much going wrong with baseball that I think that more at this point, it's not necessarily them coming together. It's a pride point at this point. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more than him picking up the phone and saying, hey, like, you guys need to get into a room. It's more of like they don't trust each other to the point where
Oh, it's
they
toxic.
feel, yeah, it's
There's no
such a
trust.
toxic environment. So like they
Mhm.
need like more than just one person. They need like a collective group of people to just, I don't know, like slap them all in the face and just be like, get over yourselves and like let's start from square one. And like I don't, there's just so much that's going to go on with that that's going to be rough. But I was going to say some of the other things real quick with the CBA. I just want to run through them before we move on or anything like that. But minimum wages are going to be raised from 700,000 to 750
Yes.
for the next couple seasons, and then after that, for the subsequent 3 seasons, it's going to be an extra 25,000, so it'll be 775,000. Player trades are less restrictive. So what they were doing was a lot of teams were trading someone to one team that had a no trade clause and then shipping them right off because once they got traded, that no trade clause was null and void. They would ship them off to a different team with no repercussions. They've gotten rid of that so that no trade clause goes with them throughout the length of their contract. So it may deter people from teams from trading players to then trade them away again. And then they came out with a new league year for next season, which is supposed to start in December 1st. They still want to have the same amount of games, the 82 game schedule. So we'll see if they can get that in there. They're gonna have like a very, very short off season. It's gonna be like every 2 weeks there's gonna be something happening. And then there is no more what they call legal tampering period, which is like usually a few days before free agency technically begins. You can start talking to players and offering them contracts. I never really got the whole idea of a legal tampering period anyways, because I felt like it was just free agency, like pseudo free agency, because they pretty much agreed on a contract. And then when the league year hit, they signed it. So it just made no sense to me anyways. But they've gotten rid of that. And now they start at right when the league year starts at noon. And that's when they can start negotiating with players. And then the big thing is that they have a piece for about 6 or 7 seasons before they would have to
Go down this road
renegotiate. Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, and like you said earlier, is good because under the commissioner's watch, they had 3 work stoppages already. Hockey was tearing itself apart, and finally, they were all able to sit down and go, look, we need some stability. Let's hammer this out. So as you brought up earlier, also because they were negotiating an extension to the CBA, and you and I were talking about it off air. Do you think this is the main reason why for so long that we joked about it every week going, hockey is still sticking to their plan to have a couple of cities to host their playoffs and whatnot, and that's all we've heard. They're still working on it. So do you think the reason we did not hear any further news on the continuation of play for this season was because the CBA was tied to it?
I would assume so. It's crazy because everything gets leaked to the media and everybody knows everything that's going on in the world with social media and all that stuff, that it's crazy that we didn't hear much of anything coming out of NHL and they were super tight-lipped about this. But
I don't recall any mention of the CBA at all.
Yeah, I gotta assume that that they had this under wraps, under closed doors. They didn't want it to get out because they didn't want anybody to be like
influencing opinions or.
Yeah, I think they wanted just unbiased opinions to get it done. I think that a lot of times when you get like media pressure and you get too many people staring at something for too long, that they find holes in it when there's really no holes. If you look at something long enough, you can find something wrong with it. Like it just takes a matter of time. So a lot of times these agreements break up because people look too much into them and they try to find something wrong with it. So the fact that they did this very quietly and they just got it done, I got to believe that was part of it. It was kind of like they were like a smokescreen. They would put out press releases every once in a while. Okay, we're still trying to number down cities. So like it kind of like gave you a taste of it. Like, oh, okay, they're just doing this. We don't have to really look too much into it. But I don't think, because they had 2 years left in it, I don't think anybody expected them to renegotiate the contract and add a 4-year extension, because that really doesn't happen. Usually it's right when it ends or the year before it ends is when they start negotiating, not like 2 years before. So I don't think anybody expected it, but they got it done, which is awesome. It's great.
I'm thrilled. I'll tell you right now, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. So I remember, I don't think it was the last one. It was the one before that when they did all the rules changes. Like hockey shut down for a while. I think I don't forget the exact period of time, but I know it went right into the season and they ended up having a short season. And I remember that was when I really lost my interest in hockey, because it was like, it's no longer on. And I was like, all right. And then they changed all the rules and tried to make it more exciting. And it was just, it totally confused me and shut me off. And I know it shut a lot of people that I know off of hockey, and they lost a lot of viewership, and it took them a while to slowly gain it back. So my fear is that that's going to end up happening with baseball, is that they will have this work stoppage that'll happen, and it'll cut into the season, and people just lose interest in baseball because they'll just be fed up with it, and it'll take them a really long time to get all their fans back. You're not going to lose all the fans, but you're going to lose a lot of viewership if they go to some type of work stoppage that extends and makes another 60-game season. Like, people already don't want to see a 60-game season. They want to see a normal baseball season like that. They're so used to that. But for them to turn around and have so many different points in a contract that they can't come together on, I don't want to take away from the NHL and start talking about MLB because we'll be here for 3 hours talking about how terrible they're doing their
Beating
business.
down
But
baseball again.
it seems like a
Let's
common
keep
theme.
it
We should
positive, Chip.
let's just change the show to beat down baseball.
Yeah, that could be a sport
but
in itself.
but they definitely got it right. And it's good to see that the owners and the players came to a middle ground. And surprisingly, out of nowhere, they did this. And for those that don't know, the hub cities that they're going to do the restart is in Edmonton and Toronto. So it's all going to be up in Canada, which is really cool. I was reading some of the stuff that they're going to have up there, which is like there's a bubble, and this seems like it's like they're in a private school location. Like they're gonna have field trips to different places around there for mental stability. They're gonna the food is gonna be we'll get talking about the NBA bubble and all about that stuff, but their food's gonna be like gourmet food. They're gonna have like pool tables. I think they said they're not gonna have video games there. Or the video games that they're going to have there are going to be very limited. They're going to have like, they have like a campus setting. So they're going to have like different games outside for people to play, like dodgeball and like volleyball and stuff like that. Like just games to pass the time when you're not practicing. So it did seem like it was kind of cool, but I just thought it was weird that they would have a like quote unquote field trip. That's what they called it. Like they're gonna bus all these players to like a museum, shut down the museum, make sure the museum's sanitized, and then have them go through this museum. It just seems like a lot of work to just keep these players sane. But it was quite interesting some of the stuff that they were doing. They're like, we're watching how the NBA is doing their stuff and how MLB, and we're just trying not to do what they're doing. So
Well, as we've joked for weeks now, we keep joking that, well, the NHL is just kind of watching what everyone else is doing. Well, it seems like it wasn't a joke. They were legitimately watching what everyone else was doing and go, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, they did it. They definitely played the slow ball on it. And definitely bided their time and saw how everything worked, and they're like, oh, okay, now we're not gonna do that, we're not gonna do this, but we're gonna do this because this worked. And I mean, I think they're gonna be successful with it, and I think it's gonna work out really well for them. So that'll be good. One thing I did want to mention about hockey before we move on, this is kind of like a tearjerker for those that don't know, and probably a lot of people don't know because I didn't know until I read the article. There was an Edmonton Oilers forward, Colby Cave, who had died on April 11th of this year. And there's an ESPN article, which I'll post up on Discord and Twitter so everybody can read it. And you can get more of a story, because I'm not going to go too much into it because I don't want to spend a whole ton of time on it, but I did want to mention it because it was something that caught my attention. It's written by Colby's wife, who they were just married for less than a year. And Colby was in the minor leagues, about to be called up before this work stoppage happened. And he ended up dying of I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like a brain aneurysm or something like that. And it started out where he just had a migraine, and he just got worse. Then he started vomiting, and they had to take him to the hospital, and he was up in Canada. And she talks about all the trials and tribulations she had to go through. Like she couldn't see him during this, before and after the surgery, because of COVID and all these restrictions. But she did mention how the entire hockey community came in, and it's about the whole story of their backstory and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good read for those that want to read it. I thought it was piqued my interest, and I read the entire thing, and it is definitely a tearjerker. So I'm forewarning people with that one, but it was definitely well written, and it's very sad. So I did want to mention that before we moved on to the next thing, which would be the NFL, because I think that's all it for NHL. We went over the CBA, when they're going to start next season. and
We're good,
everything
man.
like that. So
We're
yeah,
good. And of
that's
course, we'll
everything with
post
HL.
up. Anybody wants the articles or links where we're getting the news from, we'll be more than happy to put it up there. I was going to say, let's move on to baseball just to get the beat down out of the way. But no, go ahead. Let's do some football. NFL.
Yeah, let's get something at least a little bit positive in there,
Absolutely.
So tomorrow, the league and the owners and the NFLPA are going to meet tomorrow to go over how they're going to run the off season, how they're going to do their safety measures, how this season is going to run as far as who can be in the stands, if people can be in the stands, what are some of the restrictions that are going to be on the field with the players. This is kind of we're going to meet and hammer out all the final wrinkles and details that all the players have and get it ready. So one of the big things that they are kind of negotiating is the owners want 2 preseason games and the players don't want any preseason games, and they're kind of going back and forth. That's kind of the big thing is reporting to training camp, and then there's little things about like some of
Players
the
want
safety
testing
measures.
every day.
Yeah, players want testing every day, and the owners
The
are
league
like, no, we don't
doesn't.
want to pay for that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some give or take. So that's something that we'll probably report on next week. But that's kind of the big thing right now with the NFL is they still have to negotiate how they're going to restart the season. They've already canceled the first 2 weeks of the preseason, and they're still expected to report at the end of July to the NFL training camps and practices.
2.5 weeks from now.
Yeah, so tomorrow is going to be a big day for the NFL because they got to get something done tomorrow, which I'm almost positive they will. I don't think there's any doubt that they won't get it done. I just think it's more of a question of what restrictions and what they end up doing versus when.
Here's one thing. There are other issues that they're hashing out, and if we run into a problem, I believe here's where it's going to be: the economics and discussing the lost revenue, because you're not going to have all the fans in the stands, amongst other things. The league had offered to place 35% of the players' salaries in escrow, to make sure that there's that appropriate split between teams and players. And the players are like, yeah, that's a non-starter. So with all the negotiating that doing preseason games, safety checking, opt-out clauses for the players, and how that affects their contract and accrued season towards their status in the league, my prediction is if they run into an issue tomorrow or they can't get this done, it is once again going to be because about money.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that has to be the bottom line, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm more curious to see how they do the salary cap because of all the lost revenue, whether the salary cap's not going to go up anything, but I don't think it can ever go down.
I mean, the salary caps are always based on income in the league and what the teams can afford to spend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can see it staying flat depending on how much money is lost. I could see a potential regression in the salary cap, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I mean that would be tough. I know there's a lot of teams that are still planning to have fans. Like the Jaguars announced that they're going to be planning for a 25% capacity with everybody wearing face coverings, which again, Florida's a hot spot, and Jacksonville comes out with this fact that they still want to congregate 25% of a 60,000 seated stadium is still a significant amount of people.
Yes.
You're talking what? I'm doing quick math. Yeah, I'm trying to do quick math in my head, but 15,000 people in one area. Plus, you're gonna still have tailgating. You're gonna still have people that are there. Like people are gonna be drinking. Like you can have face coverings, but let's be honest, people are not gonna use them. They're gonna screaming and yelling.
Have you been to a Jaguars game in September? Ever?
I haven't been to a Jaguars game, but I've been to Philadelphia games. So.
And I mean, in September, like in Philly, it gets hot up there. It can get hot up there. In the Jags, if you go to a game in September, just expect to cook. I'm telling you now, they're going to require face masks. That's going to be required. How do you enforce that with 15,000 people? In that heat, I'm telling you now, and you know this area well now, as well as I do, I don't see how they're going to be able to mandate that.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Now, there are other teams that are canceled, like season ticket holders. I shouldn't say cancel. Cancel the wrong word. They've put like almost like yeah, not even a refund, but they put like a stay on ticket holders. So like people aren't going to lose their season tickets for this year, but they basically said that we're planning for no fans and that it's going to roll over to next year. So like the Ravens, Browns, and Seahawks, all if the season tickets holders have paid their money, which majority of them already have, they'll refund them the money and just or they'll give them the option of rolling it over to next year. So if they don't want that money back or they don't need that money back, they can roll it over to next year and not get charged for their season tickets next year. So there's and this is going to be the big discrepancy because the NFL hasn't come out and basically said that we're not having fans in the stands or we're acting at a limited capacity. They've pretty much said that the teams are going to dictate it, and within their local governments, they're going to dictate it, which again I think is stupid and not fair because some governments and stadiums and owners might have some affiliation with each other and might want more fans in the stands than others. And I think that everything should be even key and you should have it fair for everyone so that there's no quote unquote home field advantage. But
well, not only that, but you're also, again, this will go back to revenues and the money coming in. You know, if your local government is one of those not strict governments, and you'll be like, yeah, let them run it at 50 seat capacity, 50% capacity. And other teams are like, well, we can't open. And some teams are like, well, we can do 25%. You know, then it's going to be like, well, we need to discuss how the revenues are going to get split. The teams that opened it up more are going to want to keep more of the money. They're going to say, well, it's not my fault that you couldn't have more people in the stands. There should be a one size fits all for this.
Yeah, it's just there's so much red tape when you start saying like, oh, let the teams dictate themselves, that there's so much more red tape that you have to go through than like, hey, everyone's not going to have fans in the stands for it. And I think it's ultimately going to end up being that way where they're not going to have fans in the stands just because of how everything else is going. Like, I don't think we'll have fans. I think this, honestly, my prediction, and you can write it down, hammer it down there. I don't think we will have fans in the stands until the Super Bowl. I think that will be the first game that we have that has fans in the stands would be the Super Bowl, because I can't imagine them having the Super Bowl without fans in the stands.
Especially the wait list you have to just to potentially get tickets for that game. It's not like just going and buying tickets. It's a lottery to get tickets for that game.
Yeah, I can't see that happening at all. Now to get off this for a little bit and move on, because I think we've pretty much at this point beat like we beat it to death. Like that's what it is. Like at this point, until we know what they do tomorrow, everything's speculation at this point. We had one kind of minor transaction and one like superly major, ridiculous, unbelievable, dumbfounding, almost chump worthy,
amazing
contract.
Let's start with the minor.
So the minor one is Raheem Mostert requested a trade. He's the 49ers running back, which was kind of surprising. I didn't really know that there was any contract issues, but he basically requested a trade because the 49ers kind of were like, nope, we're going to pay you your rookie deal and not renegotiate your contract till the end of next year. And he was like, well, I don't want to be on a $3 or $4 million deal, so I want to get out of here so that whoever he trades to, then he can be like, pay me money.
Right. It should be worth noting he was the fourth highest paid running back on the Niners roster, but he was the Niners' best running back last season.
Yeah, I mean, but let's be honest, the Niners had like 6 running backs on their roster.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason he wanted out. Just like, look, I don't want to be in the thick of this, just out.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I want to be out because I want to be the number one guy, but to be out because you don't want to get paid is or you want to get paid is something completely different. I'm old school where like I would if I was playing, I got drafted by a team, I would want to stay with that team no matter what. I want to finish my career with that team. They were the ones that drafted me. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to leave because I want to go get a bigger contract. Like I would give hometown discounts. Like that's just
So you
me.
feel an obligation. The team gave you a shot. That's the least you could do.
Correct. Yeah. If they're making a legit now, it goes both ways. If they're sitting there and they're gonna like, if I'm worth like a 3-year 15 or 3-year like $6 million contract and they're going to give me a 3-year $1 million contract, like yeah, obviously I'm going to say like no. But if they're like, hey, we can only afford like if I'm worth 6 million, they're gonna be like, oh, I can only afford 4. I'm like, okay, well 2 million is not like 2 more million is not really going to make that much of a difference. Sometimes you get nickel and diming where it's like, oh, they gave 5
Well, you can
million less
restructure it
of a
too.
$30 million deal. Like, okay, so how are you ever going to spend $30 million in your lifetime? Like, just some of this stuff, like how much they get paid, just irks me very much.
Right.
Especially going off this major. So Patrick Mahomes signed a contract extension, which we were all kind of waiting because we knew it was going to set the bar
Oh, did we?
for contracts, and it
Oh,
did.
baby.
So I was talking to some of our friends when it came out because we have our little Monday get-togethers,
Yep.
and they were like, "Oh, it's not that bad. It's 450 million over 10 years. That's not so bad. It's a 10-year extension." And I said to him, "It's a $500 million. The dude is going to get a $500 million
For
to
10 years.
play football over
Yep.
10 years." And they looked at me and they went, when you put it that way, it's pretty ridiculous. So
Yeah.
he
Just you have to explain the money in the right context.
yes. Saying that he's getting 450 million, it's like, oh, it doesn't $500 million
Yeah.
for
The
playing
mind goes,
football.
whoops.
Not only does that strap the Chiefs into a contract that they're going to have to pay a ridiculous amount over a long period of time, so they're going to have to do some cap finagling to get them under the salary cap, but that's just a lot of money for one person to make. Now, I will say this: it's only 140 million guaranteed. So if he were to like, break his ankle, Robert Griffin style, or break his knee, Robert Griffin III style, and not play again, then yes, he would only get 140 million, and the Chiefs could get out of it. So they're probably going to renegotiate after some time. It's just that the value of the contract, saying it was so much, is just unreal.
So did you
It's the
see
biggest.
I'm sorry, did you see the breakdown of the contract and the way it works? Because the
Yeah.
way that they did the numbers on the contract are beautiful. From a
Yeah.
business standpoint, it's absolutely amazing. Did you actually see the breakdown?
Yeah, I saw it here. It says that he's getting 21 million in 21. He's getting 27 million in 22, and then it's 34 million plus in 23.
So this is where I give them the credit for the way they work the contract. So they're saying, look, we're going to give you 10 years. So we're going to keep you through the prime of your career. We're not going to let you go anywhere. Nowhere. And if you look at the base salary, just the base salary that he's owed, 2020's base salary was $825,000 for this year, right? But a $4.5 million signing bonus. Okay. Next year, $990,000, $2 million signing bonus. When if he's on the roster, for the roster bonus, he gets another $21 million. So this is good both ways, because let's say he gets halfway through and he starts declining. His base salary isn't that high. The bulk of the money is all pertaining to whether or not he's on the roster when that day hits. That's the crazy part right there. So let's say he gets 5 years through this 10-year contract. And guess what? After a couple of years, and I don't see it happening, but we've seen funnier things in sports. After 5 years, all of a sudden there's a big fall off or something like that's happening. They can go, you know what? You're under this contract, but we're going to trade you or whatever. You're not on the roster. They save themselves a fortune.
Yeah,
They tied it to being the roster bonus.
Yeah, which is great for them, but it's just when you look at it like a whole picture, it's just so much money, and it's ridiculous that he's going to end up getting that. Like even a fraction of that is just it's just ridiculous. The largest contract ever. So I asked you this on Monday when the news broke because I saw it and I went up to you and I said it. Do you think?
I mean, there was no way we were not discussing it.
Oh yeah. Do you think that Dak Prescott is now looking at this and saying, I want that? And do you think Jerry Jones is going to say yes? Or do you think, and this is what I think he's going to do, laugh in his face and say, you're going to get paid what I want you to get paid?
So Dak Prescott is looking at it going, this raises the bar. That's what Dak has going for him. And everybody else that's now going to come after Mahomes. The bar's been set, right? And by the way, when we talk about a record-signing contract, he is the first professional athlete in the history of all the sports to be the $500 million player. Nobody else has done it. Basketball, baseball, hockey, nobody. Mahomes is the first. This is where I think it's going to get interesting with Prescott. Is Prescott a good quarterback? Yes. Is he a great quarterback that would earn a contract like this? No. Does he think he's like Patrick Mahomes? Probably. Is Jerry Jones going to spend it? Not a chance. No way. But we've seen the years in Jerry's world over there and the way Jerry Jones likes to do things. There is no way whatsoever that Prescott even gets a deal remotely close to this. I do not see it.
Yeah, it's again, like I said, like I introduced the question. My thought is Jerry's basically going to turn to him and say, "I'm going to pay you what I think you should get paid, and you're going to accept it, or you're going to walk." And that's going to be the bottom line.
If Dak is smart, he'll do a Kirk Cousins based on the way the dollars go through right now. If he were to be franchised every year for the next 3 years, Dak walks away with about $110 million. Take it.
Absolutely.
If they're going to franchise you, take it.
Yeah, or walk, and you'll probably get at least the same amount of contract for a different team.
Now, I will tell you this. The one thing I think that would change is if Dak gets them to the Super Bowl, and then if they win the Super Bowl, and if he does it under the tag,
why do you have to like?
That's what it's going to take to force Jerry's hand. Because if he goes, look, I got you to the Super Bowl and I won a Super Bowl with you, and you're going to franchise tag me again, I promise you there are teams that will roll the dice and be like, pay him.
Why do you have to bring in such blasphemy into the show?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. We know it's not going to happen, but for the sake of argument, I mean, the only 2 losses they're going to have that season are to the Eagles. Does that make you feel better?
No, like that should be something that should be like bleeped out of the show. Like just leave it in there, just bleep it out.
Chip,
like
we made a deal that we were going to be honest to ourselves and to the fans. So I have to give an impartial opinion, okay?
Yeah, well, I don't have to like it either.
Okay, but here now on the flip side, let's that was a hypothetical scenario. Let's talk about the real situation. It ain't happening.
No, again, Jerry's gonna sit there and Jerry's gonna dictate what he wants to pay people, and if he wants to overspend on a player to keep him, that's fine. But I think that
he's not gonna do it.
Yeah, you just look at the finances. There's so many people on that team that you have to pay that they're not going to be able to pay Dak Prescott $36 million a year. Mm-hmm. Like it's just not going to work out that way.
That's the beauty of the way that the Mahomes contract was done too, because of the way that they did the finances in the contract. One of the problems that you have, like, look at the Rams. They went out, they did these big contracts and whatnot, but you cannot build the team around those players because they're sucking the money out of the pool. The way it was done here is that, yes, we can keep Mahomes, we can pay Mahomes, but we have the salary cap to put the people around him. That's how it should be done.
Yeah. I have a feeling that contracts are going to start being structured the way that Mahomes' contract is structured, where they're going to give him this big dollar amount, but they're going to pretty much either front load it or they're going to like backload it, or they're going to do it in a way that like we're going to only like most of them are going to get front loaded. They're going to be like, okay, for the first 3 years, we're going to pay you all that guaranteed money, so that after that, we can cut you, and it doesn't make any detriment to us, and we don't have to pay you anymore. So I think you're going to see a lot more contracts that are structured the way this is structured, which I think is going to change the whole business side of the NFL, and that might be something that they go into with the CBA of like changing contracts and how they're structured. So,
well, part of it is too is a lot of the players don't want those big term contracts because their attitude is, well, I want to be able to have a chance at free agency. So, what does that tell you about the player, I guess, or maybe the franchise he plays for? If after 3 years or 4 years, I want to have the ability to have an out. Are you telling me, especially if you're a quarterback, that you think you might be in a good situation, but you're not sure? You're the leader of the team. You know, Mahomes said, "Hey, man, I'm going to hang my hat here for 10 years. This is what you guys want to give me. I'll give you my best for 10." A lot of other players are going, "Well, I'll give you a couple good years, but I'm not sure if I want to stick around after that." They don't want to build. They want it now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot of them, right, don't want to sign these long-term deals, but some players want to say long-term deals. They want to set up shop. They want to have their family there. They don't want to move on. They like where they're at. So if they can get it done, then they can get it done. I just think that as the dollar amounts of these contracts go up, teams don't want to be paying 5 people $100 million for a piece, and then have 5 $20 million like a year contracts out there, where now they're going to have to like figure out where they can piece other players in
At a cheap price.
yeah, and stay under the salary cap and
Exactly.
still win. They're
Exactly.
just not going to work that way. So, but I think that this is incredibly insane. And that would be my point with it. It's just the whole contract in and of itself is just insane.
Let me say this, though. Patrick is 24 years old. God bless you. Because if you play even just 10 years now, the money that you retire with from your contract alone, and and we're not even talking about endorsements and whatnot that he's going to get going forward.
That's a
this
whole
is just
another
his contract. Yeah. Okay. God bless you. When you are done with this contract, you've already won a Super Bowl. The way they're going, they're probably going to win a couple more if they can keep this up. He can play out the tenure and go, you know what? I had a good run. I don't need anything else. You know what? He is elite. And on top of that, he carries himself well. He didn't come out with a big chip on his shoulder. The Chiefs said, "We feel you're worth it. What do you say?" He went, "Okay, let's do it. I'm going to stick around." So if every player in every sport, it's not possible, but if they could all carry themselves like Mahomes does, and the way that this deal went down, it would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing. But that's not going to happen because you got egos to stroke.
Correct. Speaking of egos, so the NBA arrived.
The NBA.
Yeah, the NBA arrived at their bubble. Oh my God, I've never read so much about like players having egos or like being prima donnas than I've read with the NBA. Like they are like little children when it comes to this stuff. Like some of the videos they're posting up is like, they posting up about the food and how it looks like airplane food. They're posting up how the rooms are too small. They have nothing to do in the bubble. And then you have like other players that are like, this isn't that bad. Like, we brought video games or playing video games or we playing poker, or the food is not like gourmet top shelf, but it's all right. And then some of them are like this is a room bigger than what I grew up in, so I'm like I'm okay with it. Like I one of the players I was watching a video was like, yeah, like the worst part about my room is that it doesn't really have a window, but I can go outside into the hallway and there's a window. Like he's like, it's not that bad. Like I've definitely lived in worse. Like some of these players are just it's frustrating how like childish they're acting with this. Like they're just trying. It goes back to the thing is like if you look at something hard enough, you can find something wrong with it. But they all got there and they were just like
They took this to
they
a whole nother level as far as complaining goes.
Like everyone was posting on Instagram of videos of having this food, and like the NBA in Orlando and Disney World had to come out and be like, hey, like this is like just the stockpile of food we have. We're gonna give them better food. Like they had to come out with a press release about the food because they were posting up all these stuff about how terrible the food was.
It's like that was the stuff on hand. What are you gonna do? Throw it away?
Yeah.
Like somebody paid for it. I'm guessing probably the NBA, right? Or the teams in general. Yeah. And it's like if you don't like it, literally take your ball and go home.
And like some of the players are just it's just like it was just so awful about like how they were talking about the food, and like it wasn't up to the standards, or they were I just like I'm looking at the food and I'm like it looks like a normal food that I would eat. Like
yeah, but Chip, you're a regular blue collar worker, okay?
I guess I'm like a regular person that doesn't have millions and millions of dollars to spend on like a chef to hand cook me food every day. Like,
right.
I cook food on my George Foreman and that's my dinner. So like, I don't know, like the more and more they complain, the more and more I just want to tell them to shut up and play basketball.
It seems like, excessive. Like there's complaining, but this is excessive. This was, just shush.
Yeah. But good news for both of us.
Hey, fire away.
Nikola Jokic is on his way to Orlando.
Yes.
So I'm gonna preface this statement with a little backstory between me and Don. So last year during the playoffs, as many of you guys know, that we bet on DraftKings and we bet on teams and everything like that. But whenever the Nikola Jokic is the center for the Denver Nuggets, and whenever the Denver Nuggets were playing or in the championship, it was always Jokic is in the captain spot no matter what. So when we would make our lineups, that was the first thing we did was put Jokic in the captain spot because he was always getting a triple-double. So a couple of weeks ago, I sent Don an article that said that Nikola Jokic had tested positive for coronavirus and that he was going to be delayed getting to Orlando and that he may not play. And the conversation that occurred between the two of us was just we were silent. And we just shook our heads and we just didn't know what to do or to say.
Damn, that was the reaction.
It was like this can't be happening. We need
we need money.
Like the staple. He's the staple of what was making us money. And like whenever we have a really bad game, like, oh, it's all right, Denver's playing next. All right, and we'd win our money back because of Denver being in it.
Yeah, Chip, how does the normal conversation go? Well, who are you starting? Well, Jokic is in the captain spot. Okay, tell me about the other five.
Exactly. Who else is there?
Yeah.
There was Jokic and everybody else at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So he tested negative, I think, on Friday, and then he has to get another test on Monday. If it comes back negative, then he can travel to Orlando because he's overseas, and he has to get 2 negative tests to be able to travel. But it's definitely awesome. I'm super excited because that means that we're gonna have
good for the playoffs, and it's good for our wallets.
Oh, absolutely. So I had to throw that in there. It's not something we really harp on, but it was something that really it was like yes, it was a yes moment for me. So
it was more of a personal thing for us.
Yes, more of a personal thing that we'd like to share with the pod or with the Sportscasters Anonymous community. So
absolutely.
The other cool thing that the NBA is doing, which they don't. So the NBA got really, really strict about a decade ago with attire coming to games, what you could wear, what you couldn't wear, how you wear your uniform, whether it's tucked in, whether it's out, because for a while there it was starting to trend down into people were showing up in quote unquote hoodlum clothing, and not stuff that was of professional nature. So the NBA is like, we can't get there. We have to. So they put in a lot of restrictions on what they could and couldn't do, and it was in the CBA, and the players agreed on it. And for the restart, the NBA wanted to do something to show their voice as far as the players and social justice and bringing to light the movements and everything that are happening out there. So they proposed to the players of them having a message on the back of their jerseys. So that, which is like unprecedented, which again has to get approved because of licensing and all this other stuff. So they came up with a whole list of messages that they could put on the back of their jersey, and they had every player write down or pick one that they would want on their jersey, and the majority of the one that got picked. So when you guys watch the shows, or if you watch the shows, the biggest one that you're going to see on the back of the jerseys is equality. So 285 of the 350 players that chose equality to be on the back of their jerseys, and then 17 of them opted out of that. And surprisingly enough, and this came out the other day, LeBron James opted out of it, which is very interesting. Now he explained it that he didn't like any of the names that they had chosen, and it wasn't really his thing, and he was supporting everything, and kind of put a good spin on it to where it was basically came down to he didn't like any of the names that the NBA had picked, and he wasn't going to pick one unless it made sense to him, which I totally respect and I totally get. But I mean, that's a lot of that's pretty cool. In that sense that the NBA wanted to do something and they put it in there and they allowed the players to voice their concerns about it. So that's something to look out for when we watch the show or watch the NBA come back, that you're going to see that on the back of their jerseys instead of their names. And the MLS kind of did something like that. The Union did something very similar on the back of their jerseys, or the Inter Miami and Orlando game. They didn't have their normal names. They had names of other people on there. So I don't want to get too much into the politics and everything with that, but I did think this was a cool newsworthy story to report on, and to let you guys know so that you're not confused when you read the back of people's jerseys and it's not necessarily their name. I don't know if you have any comments or questions or anything like that you have for this, Don.
No, I read the article and whatnot, and I'm just basically I'm rolling with it. I know some players were happy about what they could do. Some were not so happy. They said, based on the choices available, they had some other things that they wanted to say, but so they opted out of it. But I do applaud the NBA for using their platform to get the message across.
That'll be good to look out and see, and kind of a cool thing they'll be there. There'll also be a lot of things that they're going to put on the court. And I just think it's ultimately a cool, a good thing that the NBA came together and they're like, we need to do something. And we actually the NBA did have a kind of historic event happen this past couple of days. So the Palace at the Auburn Hills, or Palace of Auburn Hills, got torn down. So that's up in Detroit. That's where the Pistons used to play for so long, back in the 80s and the 90s. And they tore it down a few days ago. So after it had 30 years, and I mean, it was a shell of itself when they tore it down because they had pretty much imploded most of it already. But
back in the day, man, what an arena that was.
Yeah,
if you're a sports fan, you saw it, and there's memories of championships there for the people in Detroit, and a lot of events. That was a well talked about arena in its day.
Yeah, and it definitely had some very memorable moments. I think one of the most memorable was or at least not, I wouldn't say it's the most memorable. It's most, how can I put this, controversial, was the brawl where the players jumped into the stands and started fighting with the fans.
Oh, yes.
What was it called? It was the Motor City. Was it like Motor City Fight or something like that?
Yeah, I don't even know what they call it, but gee, I had forgot about that till you brought it up.
Yeah, I remember, because I was a lot younger when that happened, and that was almost over a decade ago. I came downstairs, put on SportsCenter, and that was breaking news, and watched it. And I watched it all morning. Me and my dad stopped what we were doing. We just sat there and watched at it, and were appalled and couldn't understand why this was happening. And it was the first time that, in recent memory, that any team or player ran into the stands and started fighting the fans. And there was a lot of backlash from it. There was a lot of suspensions. There was a lot of.
It was an ugly time for the NBA, I'll tell you that. That was just
yeah. NBA is one of the few sports where you're right there on the court, or you're right there where you can actually reach out and touch some of the players. And it got to a point where the NBA was thinking about, maybe we should put railings around and not have courtside seats, and that, I think that would have been detrimental to the game itself. It takes one really bad knucklehead to ruin an entire event.
It's ruin a good thing, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's what's one of the many, many, many iconic moments of the Palace. And so it's definitely been laid to rest, and it's definitely sad to see it go, but
thanks for the memories.
Yep, thanks for the memories. So that's it that we have for the NBA, but we have the MLB is they came out with the schedule for next season. So they're definitely going to look to have a season next year. So they're going to begin
straight with this season. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to try to bash them too much, but
no,
they come out with the the season, and they will all open up on April 1st. It's going to be the first time since 1968 that everyone's going to open up. Every team's going to play their first game on the same day, that they're not going to stagger it or anything like that.
For the record, so next year, just out of curiosity, so all 30 teams are going to open next season on April Fool's Day. That's what you're telling me.
I didn't even look at it like that when they put it on there, but yeah, they're gonna open up on April Fool's Day, and
joke's gonna be on somebody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's so many jokes there. I didn't even realize that. I didn't even realize that April 1st was April Fool's Day. But that's they wanted to start the season on the 26th of March, but they pushed it back a little bit because of COVID, obviously. But that was really the only thing that came out with it. So the last day of the regular season is supposed to be October 3rd. So I guess you're kind of having a normal off season, because usually
that's about right. The series is usually over like by November,
end October, and then you have like a normal off season. So I mean, it's possible that they have it. I mean, hopefully the world's different in a year than it is now, but
not even in a year. You're talking like 8 months, 10 months.
Yeah, the baseball. So baseball is one of those sports where the season is so long and the off season is so short that it's like, as soon as you're done with the baseball season, and the next thing you know, you turn around and it starts the new season. Whereas like all the other sports, it's like their seasons are so small and their off seasons are so long. Like the NFL off season is like so long compared to their season, and it's just,
there's also a reason for that. I mean, you're kind of throwing yourself at everybody else.
Yeah, obviously, like the
degree of
dynamics. The dynamics of the sport are absolutely different, which is crazy. But now that you put that up there, that it's going to start on April 1st, I kind of feel like an idiot right now.
So that's okay. But you know what, though? There'll be plenty of time to talk about it and hash it over and see how things go. Right now, I don't even care about next season. I just want to see the train wreck of a season they're going to put together here. So
Well,
I'm not even worried about it. By the time the season's over, I may not even care about baseball next season. And I hate to say that.
yeah. I mean, so going off that, the MLB has come out and said that they don't want fans in the stands, that they're not going to have fans in the stands, which I think
Correct.
is the right thing to do. But Wrigley kind of so Wrigley is the Chicago Cubs home ballpark. And if you've ever been to Wrigley, the way it's set up is it's right down in the middle of downtown Chicago, and they have houses all along the sides of it, so people that live there don't have to actually go to the game. They can go out on their balcony and watch the game. They're selling the roofs of the surrounding
Rooftops
places
around the stadium.
around the stadiums. Yeah, rooftops around the stadium. $350 per ticket. So instead of having fans in the stands, they're going to have them congregated around. So not only this just borderline is idiotic in hey, we don't want fans in the stands, but we're still going to get a whole bunch of people to gather together to watch the sport.
That's the ultimate social distancing. Put them on the roof.
Yeah. And then they're selling it for $350 a ticket. Not even you can buy a baseball ticket for $50. So $350.
Hey, but that includes it includes food, beer, and wine.
I have my hands in my head and I'm shaking my head right now because this is just stupid. It just makes no sense. Hey, who in? Well, I shouldn't say that because I probably would end up paying for it if I was that diehard about it. So I can't say who would actually pay for it. But it just they're trying so many crazy ways to get fans in the stands or to get fans there that it's unreal. I think I read something earlier today, and I don't know where it was. I was trying to search for it, but I think that the NHL is going to have, it was NHL. So we talked about it one of our first few shows that they wanted to have crowd noise in the stadium. So what each team did was they went to their season ticket holders and they sent them a link to record a 30-second audio or video of them screaming and yelling into the camera, and then they send it to them, and basically what they're going to do is every time they score, they're going to play the audio clips or the video clips of all these fans screaming and yelling throughout the arena to give the effect as if there are fans there. Why? It's just
next topic.
It's getting too crazy. It's just this whole thing. They're trying to find creative ways to make it work. Just it is what it is. Just leave it the way it is.
Just play ball. That's it. Just play ball, please.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you, Don, because this has been, and don't want to spend too much time on it. So there's been 66 people that have tested positive in baseball. Out of all the positive tests that they've done, I think it's been over 3,000. So it's less than 1%, or it's 1% or 2% that have been tested positive.
Yeah.
We don't know who has tested positive because they can't give out those names because of HIPAA laws and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Do you think that they should tell us who is testing positive, or do you think that they should respect their privacy and not put it out there? Now, I will say this. They will end up putting them on the DL, so we can kind of put one and one together and get two out of it. But we can't perfectly for 100% certainty say that they got COVID. So
yeah, I mean, they could be on the DL for any reason. They won't tell you if it's COVID related, but
correct.
They could just say he's on the DL. His throwing arm's bothering him, or tendonitis. You know what I mean? They could cover it up for sure.
Correct. So because HIPAA, they cannot. Because the whole COVID testing goes under a medical test.
Correct.
They cannot, unless the player says that it's okay, they cannot release their name. Now, some of them have been okay and said okay, you can just release my name, and others have been very secretive about it. Do you think, as a general public, that they should tell us who tests positive for it?
No. I see for the general public, I see no need for that. And to me, it would be no different than you and I work together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you test positive for COVID, do I need to put your name and picture up at the front of our place of business and say, this person, we had a positive case in our store, here's who it is? The players aren't going to be interacting with the fans. There's no fans in the stadium. So does the general public really need to know? No. Now, the people that will be notified, of course, they will probably do a contract tracing. Who is this person around in the clubhouse, the trainers or whatnot, obviously for those reasons. Mm-hmm. Do I think they should tell us? No, I see no need for it. And regardless, if HIPAA does not tell us, like you said, there are going to be ways to find out who it was.
Correct. Yeah. I just, when you put it with the way of like the work, I kind of stand back on my stance that I think they should tell us, but when you put it that way, it kind of makes sense why they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
I never thought of it that way. So.
They're not interacting with the public, but you know what I mean? It's not like the player's going to hit a home run and then go jump in the stands like Lambeau Leap or anything like that. It's not happening. So I see no reason to tell us, the general populace. There's no need.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. On my rethought of the stuff, I would agree with that it's not something that we necessarily need to know. Mm-hmm. So, but we're gonna move on to college football because
we almost need to have a moment of silence at this point for college football.
Well, before we do that,
look like it's gonna happen.
Before we do that, I just want to say, I told you so. That's all I want to say.
I didn't disagree with you. I did not. But remember, I told you when the whole COVID thing started, college football fans are on a whole nother level, not even like NFL fans. And if you tell them they're not going to have football, I'm telling you, if you think people are already angry over COVID, there is a lot of people in this country, and it doesn't say much for us about it at this point, that are just going to be in a real foul mood if they don't have college football.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go down the list of everything that I have here and report on all of it. You don't even need
to elaborate on it. Yeah.
No, we don't. So, like, the Ivy League has canceled their fall sports. The Big Ten and all fall sports. The Big Ten and Pac-12 are going to conference only as of now. And the ACC and Big.
Just to elaborate before you continue to the Pac-12 that where they say conference only again. I believe 3 of the teams in the Pac-12 are in California in hot spots. So I don't even see how you do conference only at that point. Please continue.
Correct. ACC and the Big 12 are going to decide in late July whether they're going to continue or go conference only.
And the ACC has Miami, which is probably one of the hottest spots right now for COVID.
Correct. Ohio State has canceled their voluntary workouts. Louisville has canceled their college basketball workouts. The good thing is that they don't plan on moving the NCAA basketball tournament, but that is next year. And then earlier today, the National Junior College Athletic Association, I think that's what that stands for, NJCAA.
Yes, that's correct.
They came out and said that they're going to move their football to the spring. So they've already made that determination that we're moving everything to the spring. They're not going to have football this fall. And then kind of an unrelated news, but sort of related, Stanford cut 11 of their sports. Basically, they were one of the programs that had the most varsity sports. So they cut 11 of their sports because they didn't have the revenue to support those sports, and they were kind of on the edge with it, and then COVID happened and it just pushed it over the edge. So they cut 11 sports to save money.
And this will upset a lot of people. I can tell you football wasn't one of them.
Yes, no, football was not one of them, but they did cut wrestling, which I thought was pretty big for Stanford. A lot of it was like fencing and like little minor sports, not any of like the major sports, but wrestling was one of the biggest ones that I remember that they had cut. So there's still a lot of wait and see because they don't really report to school until July. A lot of this is voluntary workouts that the kids go to. That most of the time it's only like a handful of kids actually end up going to these voluntary workouts. So I just, again, still can't see them doing conference only. Like, how do you do conference only and then still have a championship? Like, it just doesn't make sense that way. So I just think the NCAA should come out and just move it to the spring and be done with it. I don't know. It's going to be so difficult to logistically move everything, but I just can't see them bringing the way everything is right now in our country and how COVID's spiking. I just can't see them bringing all these kids back. And I know most schools are going more virtual and stuff like that. So I can't see that. So it's just going to be crazy. But there's some other things we wanted to get to. With that, I don't think there's really much more we can talk about that.
No, just wait and see. But it's not going to happen. But I know you're pumped. Let's talk about Major League Soccer.
Yes, Major League Soccer is back. They had their tournament. They started the tournament this previous week. It's been going great. Like, it's loved to see the sports now. They're very rusty. Let me just put that out there.
But it's sports.
Yes, but so FC Dallas and Nashville SC both opted out because of COVID. They had multiple players on their team that tested positive, so they opted out. So they kind of redid the schedule. But Philadelphia Union won, yay, this past week, which was awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing them play again on I believe it's Tuesday at 10:30. But some of the other games you want to watch out for if you wanted to catch them is Toronto versus Montreal on the 15th at 8 p.m. Battle of LAFC versus LA Galaxy on the 18th, which is going to be next Saturday at 10:30. And then Galaxy versus Portland, which is tomorrow night at 10:30. Those are some of the big games to watch out for as we do this next 2 weeks before we get basketball and hockey and have sports palooza, as I'm going to call it, back. But if you're looking for some sports and you're looking for things to watch out for and take your time off, definitely hook up with the MLS because it's really fun to watch them play. And we're going to move on to NASCAR because I want to make sure we hit everything because we're kind of running late on time.
I've been watching me some NASCAR, man.
Yeah, so there was a rookie that won the Kentucky Cup today, which is really cool.
Yep.
And Jimmy Johnson, who I had reported last week, was tested positive for COVID 3 days later. Tested negative and was completely confused and frustrated. He tested twice negative, so they think it's a false positive, which really sucks because it was the first. Like, he's never missed a NASCAR race in his career, and then all of a sudden he tested positive on a false positive and he misses the race. That kind of sucks a lot. So he was very
that really sucks.
Just confused and frustrated about that. But they did have a rookie, Cole Custer, I believe his name is, won the Kentucky race, Kentucky Cup today. Yes. So
earlier this afternoon, and I got to tell you, what was a big deal for that too was Custer started his starting position in the field. He started 29th, and the drivers that he had to pass en route to his first win, it was an impressive list of who's who. So it should make the victory for him even sweeter. So congratulations to him.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's you don't see rookies win, so that's a monumentous occasion for him.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Well, I mean, there we go with the random news. And of course, since we're at the random news, you all know what it's time for, that favorite part of the show.
It's time for Chip's Chumps. Bad plays, bad players, awful calls, poor sportsmanship. The worst of the week with Chip's Chumps.
All right, everybody, you know what time it is. So I'm going to get right into it. Number 5. So number 5 goes to a Philadelphia player who he's a clown. That's the only way I can describe him. He's an absolute clown. Joel Embiid. So everyone's going with the bubble, and he's trying to. He has a very tortured history with being sick and being out of shape and not showing up for games. So he thought it was a good idea to show up to the plane that was leaving for Orlando in a hazmat suit. Kind of ridiculous. Joel Embiid he's a clown. That's all I can say about him. He shows up and if you watch him put on the suit, it makes no sense how he puts it on, because he gets not wearing it in the car, and he's like half wearing it, and he gets out of the car and he's putting it on, but he has like 4 people helping him put it on. So it's like not even like it's gonna do anything. He's basically doing it to get a reaction out of people, and he's getting a reaction out of me. So he's got like memes and all his fans into it. So just doing stupid stuff. It's a typical Joel Embiid being Joel Embiid. So Joel Embiid, moron. Number 4. So number 4 goes to I can't even begin with this. This is just super egotistical prima donna acting. We talked about it with the NBA bubble. Rajon Rondo ripped his hotel room stay because he said it was too small, quote unquote, and put up a video of it, and it basically said it didn't meet his luxury standards that he's used to staying in, and called it a Motel 6. I'm sorry, if you ever stayed in a Motel 6, those rooms are not Motel 6 quality at all. And it basically was just complaining because the room was too small and he thought that he deserved better. Rajon Rondo, are you serious right now, dude? Get over it. It's not that long. It's not that bad. You've obviously, I don't know. If you look at the room, it's actually a pretty nice room. I just can't believe, he posted up that, I've been in these type of hotel rooms. He's got a king size bed. He's got a working bathroom. He's got mirrors. He's got an armoire. He's got a lot of stuff that you just don't get in a Motel 6. And there's no knock on Motel 6, but it's definitely not a Motel 6. Just grow up, be a man, get over yourself, stop being a prima donna, you moron. Number 3. So this one kind of makes me disgusted in how the world is going these days. And it also makes that Chip Chumps never stretches the limit as far as where we go with things, as far as age or who it affects. So this goes to a 12-year-old. I couldn't find his name, but it's a 12-year-old from Crystal Palace fan, 12-year-old boy. He posted up today a racist comment, which, again, social media has pretty much destroyed our society at this point, and I believe that wholeheartedly. People can just post up and think that it's fine to post up. This is a 12-year-old kid. I'm pretty sure that hopefully that he has no idea what he did wrong, but he ended up getting arrested for it, which I think is even more incredulous, for making racist comments. And they basically said that this is not something that we're going to take lightly, and it's not going to be tolerated, which they actually shouldn't tolerate it. And whether he got arrested or not, I don't think is near here and there. But my question is, where the hell are your parents? I can tell you, if I even hinted at anything like this, I'm getting, grounded and phone taken away. And there's a lot of things that are going to happen in my household. If this is it, this is just a disgrace. I just can't. It just mind boggles me that a 12-year-old would do this. So sorry, moron. Number 2. So this one goes to DeSean Jackson. It's been a big, huge story over this past week is captivated the entire news world or sports news world. Every day there's something new coming on about it. DeSean Jackson, again, this is a social media snafu, that the reason that social media is killing our society at this point. Basically posted up trying to compare what's going on in the world to like Hitler comment, and like you just can't do that. Like you would think that like you have this like social media thing where you can type things into a phone and you can stare at it and you can, you know, think about it more about whether you should post something or not, or use your better judgment to post something. But they don't. They absolutely just do whatever the hell they want and just like type it out, hit it, and don't even think about what they're doing. This is just a dumb, 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 idiotic thing to do. So it was offensive, it was harmful, and it was appalling that he did this. DeSean Jackson, moron. Number one. Okay, so number one goes to probably my least favorite umpire ever in the sport of baseball, and probably the most controversial umpire in the sport of baseball. And he just doesn't stop amazing me with his stupidity and his just idiotic behavior. Joe West, I didn't like you before, and I certainly don't like you after this. He posted up, and basically, like a couple of people, he was talking about how the rising numbers in our nation of COVID and how people are dying. And he kind of just said, well, they had like the one person died of, I believe was he had cancer, he had end stage 4 lung cancer. And he's like, well, he was going to die anyways, but COVID kind of accelerated it. So therefore it shouldn't be a COVID death. Are you kidding me? Seriously? Like, that is the most idiotic thing ever. It doesn't matter whether he was going to die anyways. COVID caused him to die. You can't say that it's not a COVID related death if it wasn't because of that. Like, COVID was what caused it to happen. Jesus Christ, you guys are like so idiotic. It's ridiculous. Joe West, I can't say it enough because I hate you. You are a terrible umpire. Moron.
Here we go. Chips, chumps. And quite a bit of passion in that last one there, Chip.
If you're a Philadelphia fan, you know who Joe West is, and you just don't like him. So it adds to the fuel of the fire.
So I wanted to, if I could, as always, I want to elaborate on Rondo for just a minute because, the articles from a few days ago, and I went back to look at some Twitter feeds about the photo that he sent where he just put Motel 6 Hun at NBA and shows a picture of the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the feeds that I was looking at, it's a feed that they contribute to ESPN and CBS Sports, Fox Sports, a whole bunch of others. And I laughed because they retweeted it, and the caption reads, Rondo doesn't seem pleased with his Orlando room, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first reply this tweet gets is from Motel 6, and it says, we'll always leave the light on for him with a smiling emoji.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
But there was
forgot about that, but yeah.
There was another one also that replied to the original post and said, yo, Rondo, this room is nicer than your jump shot. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, he got roasted on Twitter about it. Like, and like if you look at the picture of the room, it's like an actual nice room. Like,
it's a nice room.
He's got a king size bed. Like, he's got a mirror there. He's got lights. Like, he's got the walls aren't falling apart. It's not like it's some rundown hotel that they just.
It's not a cheap room. Hardwood floors. I mean, it is a nice room. I've stayed in cheap hotels. I've stayed in expensive ones. I'm telling you, they put them up in a good spot.
And he's just complaining because it's not like the penthouse suite.
Yeah.
Moron.
So, again, just to reiterate. But before we move on to the buzzer, Chip, as always, if anybody has any disagreements with the list, what's our course of action for that?
So you can always, I'll post it up on our Discord and Twitter. You can always either email me, or you can, post up saying that this should have been on the list, and I will respond, or I will say it on the show next week, and bring light to it and why I did not put that person on there and why you think that this person should have been on there.
All right. And with that being said, let's go ahead and hit the buzzer.
It's the final buzzer. The last moments of the show.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, you heard it. We are at the final buzzer. And as always here at the buzzer, let's start with the movie of the week. Chip, what do you have for us this week?
So this week I went with I was bashing a lot of Philadelphia sports, so I thought it was apropos that I bring light to a good Philadelphia sports movie. So I went with Invincible. It's a 2009 film with Greg Kinnear and Mark Wahlberg. And a few other really well-known actors. Basically takes through the real life, almost kind of real life story of Vince Papale, who was a Philadelphia citizen who walked onto the Philadelphia Eagles and made the team, and actually was on the team for a few years and was on their special teams. And it kind of goes through the trials and tribulations that he had to go through with his friends and his family and everything that was going on in the city at the time of when this was going on. And one of the quotes from it, which I thought was absolutely awesome, is, "These are the toughest fans there are. They threw snowballs at Santa Claus." And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Boom. All righty. I want to throw out there here in the last couple minutes as we close out the show. Chip, have you been on Discord since we posted the last show?
I have. We've gotten a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion going on about the Redskins changing their name.
And the name changes in general.
Discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, and name changes in general. It's been a very good discussion. I'm liking it a lot. I haven't been on the last few days to kind of read or really put or join in on the conversation. But I do appreciate everyone posting up, and I will be reading that later tonight, if not tomorrow, and responding.
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, because of the crazy schedules that we have, other than work and the things, we both have a lot going on in our personal lives. So we don't always respond right away, but I want to assure everybody in that conversation, we are seeing it. Even if we don't respond, between Chip and I, we see the updates and whatnot. And the conversation, we've had a couple of conversations here and there since we started the show, but the name change topic in particular really seems to have opened up a big discussion with our fan base.
Yeah, it's a healthy discussion too. It's not, everybody's been really respectful, which is awesome. So keep it coming, guys. We really appreciate it.
Couldn't have said it better myself, as Chip would say. So we appreciate the feedback and the continuing conversation. As we have said before, we tend to stray away from the political aspect of things or whatnot, but there is no denying that there are things going on that do affect the sports world. And Chip and I are trying to do our best to bring it in a fair and unbiased discussion. And we do appreciate everybody for having a meaningful conversation and respectful to everybody. That's the best part about it. So with that being said, Chip, that's a wrap. That's another one for the books. And we will talk to you all next week. We're out.
You've been listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Your opinion may differ, but that doesn't mean you're right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We hope you were intrigued or at least entertained. You can find the podcast on all the major networks. Find us on Discord and Patreon at Random Chatter. Hook up on the website at randomchatter.com and browse through the merchandise at randomchatter.com/store. We'll see you next time. This is Sportscasters Anonymous. Signing off.